Hello?
A bed that one day didn't just offer sleep, it took away an entire family.
Hey you, will you play with me?
Welcome to my haunted world.
Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Today's story is based entirely on a true incident, something that happened in Wisconsin, USA in 1987. Sleep, a house, and a cursed bunk bed. How these three things changed an entire family's life forever. You'll now hear that terrifying truth. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, because the story begins now. Tallman Bunk Bed, the real curse of a haunted bed. Let's begin. In January 1987, in the small town of Horicon, Wisconsin, a typical working-class family, the Tallmans, brought home an old wooden bunk bed for their children. From that moment on, a series of disturbing, inexplicable, and terrifying events began to unfold inside their house. The family became so frightened that they eventually abandoned the home altogether. This incident was later featured on NBC's Unsolved Mysteries. This story is based on that true case, with the real names of the individuals changed to protect their identities. Some dialogue, emotional moments, and domestic exchanges have been dramatized to match character perspectives. But these additions do not compromise the believability of the story. It was a heavy afternoon. Late November brought a biting cold to the Wisconsin air, along with a strange kind of silence. David Hamilton, a factory worker, returned home that afternoon with an old wooden bunk bed. Simple wooden construction, nothing fancy. It hadn't cost much either. Their two children, Nora and Danny, shared a room. The idea was that a bunk bed would save space. The bed was placed in one corner of the room. His wife Susan wiped off the dust and spread the bedsheet. "Old but seems sturdy," David remarked. The evening passed normally. Dinner was meat stew. An old song played on the radio. Outside, the wind howled stronger and stronger, rattling the window glass. Nora and Danny played happily, jumping on the bed. They had no idea that something unseen might already be resting on that wood, some shadow that had followed the bed home, now seated silently in their room. Around 10 p.m., the family went to bed. 12:37 a.m. Susan suddenly woke up. The radio had turned on by itself, but no music was playing, only a faint, whispering sound. It felt like someone was saying something, slowly, over and over again. She got up to switch off the radio, but before her fingers touched the button, the sound stopped. Back in bed, she shook David awake. "Did you leave the radio on?" David mumbled sleepily. "No, just sleep. It's probably the cold." Susan realized sleep wouldn't come easy tonight. The next morning, Danny said, "Mom, someone was under my bed last night. He was calling my name." Susan tried to smile and gently placed her hand on his head, but her lips had gone dry. "Just a nightmare," David said. "Kids get scared by new things. It's normal." But he knew. The whispering from the radio last night and now Danny's words, they were not unrelated. That night, while everyone slept, a faint metallic scratch echoed from the wooden frame of the bed. No one in the house heard it, but someone else might have. Wisconsin nights are mostly silent, especially behind David and Susan's backyard, where nothing but a few dry trees and an old shed stood. But this night, even within the silence, something trembled, unseen but felt. That night, the clock froze at 2:40 a.m. Susan woke up again. A strange light was glowing inside the room. Not from the lamp, not from outside. It was a deep red glow, unnatural and vivid, casting flickering shadows on the walls. The shadows were moving. She turned to wake David, but before she could, the light vanished. The room returned to darkness. She rushed to the window. Everything was still. No lights outside. But just moments ago, the room had been glowing red. Her heart pounded like something wild inside her chest. She knew something was very wrong. In the morning, Danny barely touched his breakfast. In a trembling voice, he said, "Mom, someone was under my bed again last night. He said, 'Come down.'" David got irritated. "Why are you scaring everyone? No one needs to go under the bed. No one saw anything." But when Nora said, "I saw it. There was someone under the bed. He was reaching his hand out to pull Danny," then everyone went silent. David suddenly noticed footprints on the floor. Not shoe prints, bare feet. Not a child's, an adult's. And the worst part, the prints were going from inside the house to the door, not the other way around. David searched the house with a flashlight. Nothing. All windows and doors locked. It was impossible for anyone to get in without them knowing. "Something is happening in this house," Susan whispered. "Ever since that bed arrived." David said, "Can an old wooden bed bring ghosts?" But that night, he would learn. Fear only exists when something real is there to fear. 3:05 a.m. David lay in bed. As he opened his eyes, he saw someone was standing in the corner of the room. No face, no eyes, just a tall, shadow-like figure. In front of it, a red light was glowing from within the wooden slats of the bed. David blinked. The light was gone. The figure too. He knew he could no longer blame his mind.
That night was uncomfortable. David kept waking up. There were no noises, but his body felt it. Something was not right. A strange pressure loomed in his head, unexplainable yet real. At 3:08 a.m., his sleep broke in a way that would change him forever. Nora suddenly screamed, "Mom! Mom! He's underneath! He came back!" Susan rushed to the kids' room. Nora was crying, her eyes wide, pointing toward under the bed. "That shadow! He was calling me! He said, 'You took my place!'" Without another word, Susan grabbed the kids and brought them into her own room. David quietly bent down and pointed his flashlight under the bed. Nothing. But his eyes caught something. On one side of the bed's wooden frame, deep scratch marks, like someone had carved into it with a piece of iron. Harsh, long, uneven. David said nothing. Later that night, the radio turned on twice. No music, just a strange hissing, like someone breathing. And underneath that breath, a voice whispering slowly, calling a name. "Danny, Danny, come down." Danny froze. His face was pale, his lips sealed. He couldn't speak. Finally, David understood. This wasn't something they were imagining. The next day, Susan went to speak with a local church priest. The priest said, "Sometimes objects, especially old wood, carry things with them, memories, history, and sometimes those memories awaken." Susan asked, "Do you believe something's really here? We only brought home a bed." The priest took a long breath. "It's not new in Wisconsin. 5 or 6 years ago, there was a similar case, a bed that tore an entire family apart. Their name was Tallman. You'll find it online. The house they left behind was in this very town." Susan's voice dried up. "Tallman? David, searching their purchase receipt, found the source. The paper read, "Pre-owned item from H. Tallman Estate." That night, he woke to a sound. Under the bed, he saw a pair of eyes staring at him. Not a face, just eyes, glowing faintly red in the darkness. And around those eyes, there was nothing. The next morning, David made a decision. The bunk bed had to go. He took it apart himself, unscrewed every piece, carried the wooden frame into the yard. But even after removing the bed, the night didn't change. In fact, things felt stranger, deeper, more aware. That evening, Susan stopped in the kitchen. The wooden cabinet next to the fridge, which never moved, was slightly out of place. Her chest tightened. She pushed it back. But when she returned 10 minutes later, it was out of place again, exactly the way it was before. She didn't say anything, just closed the window. But on the glass, she thought she saw a handprint. That night, the electricity went out. David grabbed a flashlight. The kids were in their room. Susan noticed something on the bedroom wall, in the corner where the bunk bed used to be. A swirl pattern, like someone had traced it with a finger. When she touched it, a faint vibration ran through her hand. "What have we done?" she whispered to herself. Then the landline phone rang. David picked it up. What he heard was the sound of a ticking clock. Tick, tick, tick. And then a woman's voice, dry, cracked, spoke slowly. "You are in my room. Leave." David dropped the receiver, but just before it disconnected, he heard something else. His own name. David. From that night, David and Susan began keeping a written record. In his notebook, David wrote, "Even after removing the bed, nothing has changed. Something is still trapped inside this house. The entire house feels like it's breathing, like we've stepped into something living." 3:13 a.m. Danny woke up screaming. His face was flushed red. He kept repeating only one thing. "He's back! He's inside the room again!" No one asked who, because everyone had the same name echoing in their minds. The one who came with the bed. Nights were no longer for sleep. Every night felt like a time when something inside the house was waking up. David, Susan, and both kids now slept in the same room, as if being each other's shadows gave some false sense of safety. But sleep didn't come that night. It felt like the walls wanted to speak. 2:19 a.m. Everyone woke to a strange sound. No, it wasn't the window, not the doors. The sound came from inside the walls. A ticking, like nails scratching, slowly from ceiling to floor. Susan whispered, "Could it be rats?" David shook his head. "Rats don't make footsteps. Do you hear it? Like bare feet walking." He pressed his ear to the wall. The ticking paused, then resumed, and this time a heavy breathing sound was heard in between, almost human. In the morning, David examined the wall. It was a boundary wall. Nothing should be on the other side. But he found a faint crack beneath the paint. He dug with his fingernail and exposed part of a hidden wooden box inside the wall. He pried it open, a small wooden container wrapped in old white paper. Inside, he found a burnt pendant and a few torn photographs. A young child, eyes scorched, face blurred, and on one side, a name, H. Tallman. David felt his chest tighten. That night, Susan called the priest again. He paused, then said, "You're still in that house? Don't you understand? The house isn't cursed because of the bed. The bed came back to its home. It wants to stay where it belongs." David asked, "You mean this is the Tallman family's old house?" The priest replied slowly, "You bought the bunk bed from the Tallmans, yes, but I believe they didn't just sell the bed. They were trying to leave something behind, but some things remain bound to the house." 3:06 a.m. On the wall beside Danny's bed, a shadow appeared, human-shaped. It moved through the wall's cracks, in and out. On its shoulder hung a piece of old wood, scratched and scarred. It had no head, no face. Only one thing dangled from its chest, a pendant. And in that moment, a child's voice echoed from within the wall. "You promised no one would ever sleep in my place again." Now the house seemed to breathe. Whispers in the walls, lights flickering, doors moving on their own. Everything felt like they were not alone anymore. Something or someone was observing them. David decided to find proof. He took out the old family camcorder, mounted it on a tripod, pointing it toward the children's room, angled perfectly to capture beneath the bed. 11 p.m. Everyone asleep, room in darkness, camera recording. The next morning, David woke up and rushed to stop the camera first. No one had felt anything strange that night. He took out the tape and sat in the living room to review it. For the first few hours, nothing. Everyone asleep, room quiet. Then, timestamp 3:07 a.m. The door slowly opened, but no one entered. Yet a shadow was visible, as if someone stood behind it. 3:08. The room's light flickered once, then off again. Then, David's throat dried up. On screen, a hand was emerging from under the bed. Slowly, a darkened, wrinkled hand with long fingers reaching the floor. It moved as if searching for something. Then the hand slid back, and the room was dark again. David looked behind him. The kids were playing. He said nothing. But when he rewound the tape to review again, that segment was gone. From 3:07 to 3:09, the video was just black. No image, no sound, no light. Just darkness. The timer kept running, but the video was blank. David showed the footage to a local police officer, a friend. The officer watched and said, "This looks like a glitch. This can happen with old electronics." David replied, "Glitch? But the kid said something calls from under the bed. We saw the lights flicker. Is that a glitch too?" The officer said nothing. David and Susan now understood. This wasn't just fear. The house itself was becoming something else. David wrote in his notebook, "I tell my son ghosts aren't real, but now I don't have the courage to say it again, because I've seen it. I saw that hand." As the night ended, the camera continued rolling. Silence in the room, but in one corner of the frame, a pair of eyes stared from within the wall. They didn't move, just watched. and beneath the eyes a small wooden sign hung. On it was written, "My room, my sleep." David had found the pendant that very day, hidden inside a wooden box wedged between the walls. Inside were torn old photographs and that pendant. The chain was broken, the metal had scratches, but at its center was a strange engraved symbol. Inside a circle, something like a carved face, but without eyes. David didn't yet know this pendant might be the key to everything. He took it to a small local museum in town. There worked Mr. Halverston, an elderly historian known for identifying antique relics. Mr. Halverston held the pendant silently for a while. Then he said, "I've seen this symbol before. It's a soul-binding sigil. In the Middle Ages, it was believed that if a soul was dishonored after death, it would seek refuge inside an object. Often, that object was wood, because even when wood decays, the soul remains." David's throat went dry. "Are you saying this pendant is connected to someone dead?" Mr. Halverston nodded. "This symbol appeared in some old reports related to the Tallman family. I'm not certain, but I believe this might be a relic of that same soul." Susan started digging through old newspaper clippings. They came across a 1987 news article. The Tallman family had abandoned their home after removing a cursed bunk bed. Their young son, Henry Tallman, died at the age of 7 from sudden illness. Before his death, he reportedly said, "I won't let anyone sleep in my bed. It's mine. I'll stay underneath." That pendant had Henry's name engraved on it. One night, David sat alone, holding the pendant in his hand. He whispered, "If you're still here, please let us go. We took nothing from you." Then, knock, 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 a sound behind him at the window. He turned around. No one was there, but on the inside of the glass, something had been written. It was mine. 3:17 a.m. Susan woke and found Danny was missing from bed. She heard his voice, but it came from a corner of the room. "Mom, I went underneath. He asked me to. You can sleep." She rushed toward the sound, but the room was empty. Only a broken pendant lay under the bed, engraved beneath it in small lettering, "No one will disturb my sleep." The morning after Danny's disappearance, David and Susan made a decision. They had to leave this house. Whatever was happening was traumatizing their children. They needed survival, not shelter. They began planning their exit. But leaving wasn't going to be easy, because something didn't want them to go. David was packing up everything, box by box. He touched the pendant one last time. No, he'd already locked it in a metal box hidden under the sewing table. Susan cleaned the entire house. Danny and Nora had been sent next door to play, so they wouldn't notice anything strange. Everything was going fine, until suddenly, the lights went out. David checked the switchboard. The main line was fine, but the lights in the room began to flicker. Click, click, click. Each flicker casting a longer shadow across the wall. Not human, but some shape stretching across the surface. Then, from around the corner, a box rolled on its own across the floor. Its contents spilled. Among them, Danny's small shirt. And just above it, a wet handprint appeared. No one touched it. That night, David was clearing the back seat of the car. Everyone was asleep, only he and Susan remained awake, getting ready. At exactly 3:14 a.m., David stood at the front door and saw Danny standing there. But he seemed asleep, his eyes half shut. Danny spoke. "I'm not going. He said I don't need to leave. Mom will go, you'll go, but I'll stay. He said so." David rushed and picked him up. Danny felt cold, icy cold. As they prepared to leave, David grabbed the camcorder. It still held footage from the night before. He watched it from the car. The tape opened with a loud scream. Not Danny's voice, someone else. Then the camera showed writing on the wall. "You wanted the house. You took it. Now it's yours." The next morning, the family vacated the house. David moved his family out of town. But one night, David's phone rang. On the other end, a distorted, broken voice. "You can run with my house, but I don't sleep." They were in a new city now. A small rented apartment. Quiet, clean. No neighbors, no history. Still, sleep wouldn't come easily. Nora and Danny now slept in separate rooms, but Susan would always wake up at night to check on them. David couldn't relax either. Every evening he sat down with the old notebook, where he'd written every incident with date, time, and feelings. But tonight, something was different. There was a new line in the notebook, one he didn't write. "You're still wrong. Change the house, but sleep doesn't change." David froze. There was no pen in his hand, yet the ink was fresh, still wet. He shut the book. That night, David played one of the old tapes, the one he'd seen countless times. The hand under the bed, the door opening. But this time, something new. At 8 minutes and 14 seconds, a voice whispered from under Danny's bed. "It was mine. I only wanted to sleep." The voice was clearer now, and filled with sadness. One night, Susan woke up to see Nora silently standing at the door. She asked, "What is it, honey?" Nora replied, "He wants to sleep again." The next morning, Danny said, "I saw our old house from the window. It's dark now, but one window had a light on." David froze. "But you don't even know where that house is, Danny." Danny didn't smile. He just said, "You forgot, but I didn't." Months passed since they left the old house. New city, new life. But some things never become old. That night, Susan told David, "Doesn't it feel strange tonight? The house is too quiet." David smiled. "Quiet is good. No fear in quiet." He looked at the clock. 2:59 a.m. Then he saw it. The clock stopped moving. 2:59, 2:59. Time had frozen. The air inside the room grew heavier. The window glass fogged up, though it wasn't cold outside. From the corner of the room, their old camcorder turned on by itself. No one touched it. No one pressed play. The screen lit up, showing a live view of the room, except everything looked the same, except a child was standing beside the bed, not one of theirs. He whispered softly, "It's 3 o'clock. Now you sleep. It's my turn." Danny suddenly stood up, eyes closed. He walked toward the door. Susan screamed, "Danny, where are you going?" Danny didn't respond. He just mumbled, "I was already here. Now I'm going back." David ran to grab him, but then a blinding light flashed outside the window. For 1 second, the house was dead silent. Then, the next day, David watched the camcorder footage. Not everything had been captured, but throughout the entire video, one slow, dragging voice played in the background. "Sleep, house, mine, come back." At the very end, the screen showed one message. No timestamp, no file code, just one line. The Tallman family was not the end. That house still stands empty today, but sometimes at 3 a.m. people say one window lights up. And once in a while, someone writes on the fogged-up glass, "Your sleep is now mine." You have just listened to a true horror experience, The Curse of the Bed. Thousands of such mysteries still remain hidden in darkness. We'll meet again with another tale of terror. Until then, stay safe, stay well, and before you go to sleep, don't forget to check under your bed. Thank you.
Like and subscribe.